first moved to Tokyo, I didn't have much money. I was 23, fresh out of college, and lucky to get a contract job that barely covered food and rent. I scrolled through dozens of listings before I found something that seemed off. It was a studio apartment in an older building, about 10 minutes from the station. Fully furnished, top floor, and way too cheap. Tokyo rent doesn't come cheap, especially not for something this central. But the photos looked decent, and I figured maybe it was a scam or the catch would reveal itself later. I messaged the landlord anyway. To my surprise, he replied right away. Older man, polite tone, no red flags. We met the next day and everything moved fast. I didn't even need a guarantor. He handed me the key, and as I turned to leave, he paused. Just one thing, he said with a strange smile. Keep your windows closed at night. The wind up here is weird. I asked what he meant. He shook his head and muttered something about drafts and noise. I didn't press it. I moved in that evening. The place smelled faintly of old wood and dust, but nothing unbearable. The lights worked. The water ran fine, no mold. The bed was stiff, but I was used to worse. It felt too good to be true, honestly. That first night was uneventful. I unpacked, microwaved some instant curry, and scrolled on my phone until I passed out. The hum of traffic below was oddly comforting. It reminded me of home. But the second night, something changed. Around 2 a.m, I woke up without knowing why. No sound, no light. Just a strange feeling like the air had shifted. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened. That's when I heard it. A soft tapping. 3 knocks. Then silence. It was coming from the wall behind my bed. The wall that connected to the next apartment. I froze. Maybe the neighbor was just working late. Maybe it was nothing. But then I remembered something. This apartment was the last unit on the floor. There was no next door. I tried to laugh it off. Old building, pipes, wind. But a part of me didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I asked the building manager if someone had moved in next to me. He looked confused. That unit's been empty for years, he said. Why do you ask? I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and walked away. That night, the tapping came back, and it hasn't stopped since. I told myself it was nothing. Old buildings creak, walls shift, pipes expand. I repeated that like a mantra while brushing my teeth the next night. But again, at exactly 2 a.m, I woke up. 3 soft knocks. From the wall. Right behind my head. I sat there in the dark, frozen. No footsteps, no voices. Just 3 steady knocks, then silence. I grabbed my phone. 2:01 a.m. I turned on the flashlight and pointed it at the wall. Just plain faded wallpaper. No cracks, no stains. Nothing out of the ordinary. Except the dread that crawled across my chest like a cold hand. The next day I went to work sleep-deprived and anxious. I asked a coworker who had lived in Tokyo his whole life if old buildings made that kind of noise. He shrugged. Sometimes. But the same sound at the same time every night? He paused. That's weird. That night I stayed up. I sat on the edge of my bed with the lights off, staring at the wall. I checked the clock, 1:58, 1:59. 2:00. Knock, knock, knock. 3 perfect taps, like fingernails on wood, and then nothing. I felt like I was being watched. I don't know why, just this awful, invisible pressure in the room. I turned on the lights, paced around, opened the window for air. That's when I saw something that made me stop cold. Across the narrow gap between buildings was another balcony. It belonged to the unit next to mine, the one that was supposed to be empty. Someone was standing there. Not moving, not smoking, just standing perfectly still. I couldn't make out the face, just the shape of a woman with long hair, facing straight down like she was looking at the ground. I watched for a full minute. She didn't shift or turn. It didn't look natural. It looked like she'd been frozen there for hours. I shut the window and locked it. The next morning, I went to the building manager again. This time, I asked him directly, "Are you sure the unit next to me is empty?" He looked uncomfortable. "Yes, it's been locked for years. Why?" "I saw someone on the balcony." He stared at me, then quietly said, "You should keep your curtains closed at night." And that was it. No explanation. No follow-up. Just that one warning. That night, the knocks came again. But this time, they weren't just at the wall. They were at my window. I didn't open the curtains. I couldn't. The knocking at my window was soft but deliberate. 3 slow taps, just like before. My apartment was on the 5th floor. There was no balcony under my window. Nothing a person could stand on. And yet, she was there. I knew it. I sat perfectly still in the dark, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. I waited for the sound again. I gripped my phone, debating whether to film it, call someone, do something, but my hands were shaking too much. I just stayed frozen until the knocking stopped. The silence afterward was worse. It stretched for minutes but felt like hours. Eventually, I fell asleep with the lights on. The next day, I was a mess. I didn't want to go back to that apartment, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. Tokyo isn't kind to broke 20-somethings, and hotels weren't an option. That evening, I stayed out as long as I could. Rode the train in circles. Ate convenience store food at a park bench. Anything to avoid going home. But when I finally did, something had changed. There were scratches on my front door. Thin, shallow lines. Like someone had dragged their nails across it again and again. I touched them. They were real, fresh. I went straight to the manager's office. His door was locked. Lights off. No one home. It wasn't even that late. I returned to my unit, heart racing, and checked the hallway. Empty. Inside, everything seemed untouched. But when I walked past my window, my blood went cold. The curtain was open. I never opened it. I was sure. And now the view outside showed the same balcony, with the same figure, still standing, still not moving. Only this time she was facing me. Her face was pale, blurred by the glass and distance, but I could make out dark hollows where her eyes should have been. I closed the curtain slowly and backed away. That night, the knocking didn't come at 2 a.m. It came at 3, then again at 4, then again, and again, every hour, all night. She wasn't waiting for a time anymore. She was waiting for me to open something. I couldn't take it anymore. For nights she knocked. Not just on the wall or window, but the door too. Always in threes. Always patient. Like she knew I was listening, and that I was starting to break. I barely slept. I barely ate. Every shadow in the apartment felt like her shape. Every sound felt like her hand. On the 5th night, just past midnight, I snapped. I needed to know what was in that apartment next to mine. I stepped into the hallway and stood in front of the door to Unit 14. The empty one. The door looked normal, dusty, untouched. But when I pressed my ear to it, I heard something. Breathing. I knocked. No answer. I gripped the handle, locked. Of course it was. But then I looked down and noticed something strange. The dust on the floor in front of the door was disturbed, like someone had been walking in and out recently. That's when I remembered the balcony. My balcony and hers were only a few feet apart, separated by a flimsy steel divider. Back inside, I stared at the divider through my window. It looked climbable. I told myself not to. That this was insane, that I should just move out and forget it. But I was already opening the window. The air outside was bitter cold, and the city lights below looked farther than ever. My hands gripped the railing as I climbed over the edge. My foot found the divider, then the other balcony. I stepped over. Her window was cracked open. No sound came from inside, just stillness. I pushed it further and crawled in. It was like stepping into a tomb. The unit was bare. No furniture, no personal items. Just a thick layer of dust covering everything except for one spot on the wall, where the paint was peeled dark and stained. The same wall my bed sat against. There were 3 long scratches across it, like claws dragged through the plaster, and then I heard something behind me. I turned slowly. There she was, standing in my apartment, looking at me through the window I had left open. Her mouth hung open and she began to move toward the glass. I screamed and scrambled back through the balcony, nearly slipping. I slammed my window shut and locked it, drew the curtains, sat on the floor shaking, listening for the knocks, but they didn't come that night. They didn't have to. She had finally seen inside. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with the lights on, back against the wall, facing the window with a kitchen knife in my hand. I don't even remember grabbing it. I just knew she had seen me. The apartment felt different, heavier, like something was in the room now, hiding in the corners, breathing the same air. By morning, I made my decision. I packed what little I had into a bag, left the keys on the table, and walked out. I didn't care about breaking the lease or losing my deposit. I just wanted out. At the station, I kept looking over my shoulder. expecting to see her face in the crowd. I left Tokyo that day, found a capsule hotel in Yokohama and slept, like the dead for the first time in a week. 2 days later, I got curious. I searched online for the apartment building. The listing was gone. No surprise there. But when I dug deeper, I found something. 7 years ago, a woman in her 20s jumped from the balcony of Unit 14, the same unit next to mine. She had filed complaints before her death. Strange knocks on the walls. Whispers at night. Someone standing outside her window. No one took her seriously. The last entry in her tenant file said, she reported. Someone entering her room even, when the door was locked. Her name wasn't listed, just a photo, grainy black and white, but it was her. The woman on the balcony. I kept scrolling and found a comment thread on a Japanese message board. Locals talking about the building. One sentence stood out. No one stays more than 5 nights in that unit. I counted on my fingers. I had spent 5 nights there. Exactly 5. Now sometimes late at night I still hear it. 3 knocks. Soft, slow, and patient. But they're never at the wall anymore. They're at windows. Hotel windows. Train windows. Once my car window. I don't think she's tied to the apartment. I think she needed someone to see her. To let her in, and I did.